Good day, children. So today we are going to read the lesson from the snapshot Mother's Day, and you are very much aware about the different days that you celebrate. All those particular days are quite interesting and favorite to you, as Father's Day, Mother's Day, Friendship Day. All these things are there and you enjoy celebrating it, and you try to bring some speciality for those purposes. So here we are going to read the Mother's Day. So the main characters what we are going to read today from the starting is Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson. So these two ladies are in conversation in the first part of the lesson. And Mrs. Fitzgerald, she is quite strict, strong, and she is not at all, she is commanding lady. She wants everybody else to do the work, and this Mrs. Gerald and Mrs. Pearson, she is very humble lady, and she is always working for the family, and the family, they don't care for her, although she works for them so much. And whenever they return from their work, they start giving orders to her. And Mrs. Fitzgerald, she doesn't like all these things, that all the work is being done by Mrs. Pearson and the family members. They always try to do the bossing over her. So she doesn't like all these things, and she asks her to be strict and don't let them become a boss over her. And Mrs. Fitzgerald, she says, I feel very sorry. If I'll become a boss, they will be in problem. So I don't want my family to be in problem. But Mrs. Fitzgerald, she forces her and she says, alright, we'll do one thing. That will change our spirit. In your body, my spirit will be there, and in my body, your spirit will be there. So in that way, those people will not be able to understand what has happened. And this way, she wanted to bring the family under control. So Mrs. Fitzgerald, she asked her to do the same. So we'll read from the lesson. The lesson here, it says, and that's all I can tell you, Mrs. Pearson, could be a good fortune, could be a bad one. All depends on yourself now. Make up your mind, and there it is. So she says, if you want to bring your fortune, good, then it's up to you. And if you don't want it, so that is also up to you. So you better make up your mind what you want to do. So Mrs. Pearson says, yes, thank you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. I'm much obliged. She says, I'm very much thankful to you. I'm sure it's wonderful having a real fortune teller living next door. Did you learn that out east? So she said, you are really fortune teller, and I like that, and I think you must have learned all these things in the eastern countries. So Mrs. Fitzgerald said, 12 years I had of it. With my old man rising to be lieutenant, quartermaster, he learnt a lot, and I learnt a lot more. So she said, for 12 years she has learned this, and her old man, means her husband, was lieutenant quartermaster. He learnt many things, and from him, Mrs. Fitzgerald learnt more things. But will you make up your mind now? And she's asking, will you decide just now? Put your foot down, means put your mind and soul in such a way that you should become a boss to your family. Once and for all, and be the mistress of your own house and the boss of your own family. So once when you'll become the boss and the mistress of your family, everything will be okay. So Mrs. Pearson says that is easier said than done. So she says it is easy to say, but for doing it is not so easy. Besides, I am so fond of them, even if they are so thoughtless and selfish. So she is so kind lady. She says, "Ki I am very much fond of my family. Though they forsake me, though they are thoughtless, though they are selfish, but still I like them very much. They don't mean to be. They don't mean what they want, what they are saying, and I know them very well." So Mrs. Fitzgerald said, maybe you are thinking like that. It is better if they learn to treat you properly. So it is better to make them treat you in a proper manner. Yes, I suppose it would in a way. So Mrs. Pearson says, yes, I suppose that they should learn something. No doubt about it at all. Who is the better for being spoiled, grown man, lad or girl? So Mrs. Fitzgerald says, who is better for being spoiled, grown man, lad or girl? So your husband, your son and daughter, all are spoiled. Nobody you think it does them good when you run after them all the time. All the time you work for them, you are always running, you are always on your heels working for them. Take their orders as if you are the servant in the house, and they give you orders all the time and you work like a servant. Stay at home every night while they go out enjoying themselves. The morning time they go for work, in the evening they come back, then they freshen up themselves and then they go out in the night to enjoy themselves. And you remain in the house all the time, working for them. Never in all your life is the ruin of them as well as you. So this way you have ruined yourself and your family. Husbands, sons, daughters should be taking notice of their wives and mothers, not giving them order or treating them like dirt. So the husbands should take notice of the wives, means they should think about their wife, and the children, they should think about their mother, and they should not treat them badly. And don't tell me you don't know what I mean, for I know more than you have told me. So she said, you don't behave as if I don't know anything. You have told me everything and I know about you, what is going on. So Mrs. Pearson said, I am sorry that I have given you hint. So Mrs. Fitzgerald, it's more than hint your family needs, Mrs. Pearson. So she says, it's not hint. Your family needs more correction than what is needed. I suppose it is, but I do hate any unpleasantness, and it's so hard to know where to start. I keep making up my mind to have it out with them, but somehow I don't know how to begin. And then she says, yes, I want to bring correction in them. I want them to be proper, but I don't know from where I should begin this work. Then she says, then she looks at the watch. Oh my gosh, she says, now ready, and they'll be at home any minute and probably all in a hurry to go out again. So she said, now it's time for them to come, and don't know what time they will come and what time they want to go out. So she says to leave the place to Fitzgerald, but she doesn't get up. Mrs. Fitzgerald doesn't get up. She pulls Mrs. Pearson's hand and she says, let them wait or look after themselves for once. That is where your foot goes down. Start now. She said, you learn to become the boss over them. You boss them and you be strict with them, and you start just now. And then she lights a cigarette, and then she tries to convince her, she tries to tell her to be strict. Mrs. Pearson, she feels embarrassed and she says, I know you mean well. I know that you want me to be good. I agree with you. But I promise you'll really have it out with them. I know I wouldn't be able to keep my promise. And she said, whatever I am promising, I know I won't be able to do that. I cannot become the boss over my family. So Mrs. Fitzgerald said, let me do it now. You cannot do it, so I'll do it. So Mrs. Pearson said, no thank you. She said, no, I don't want anybody else to interfere in my family matters. So it's better you don't do anything, and I cannot blame anybody for that. And then Mrs. Fitzgerald said, you haven't got the idea. She said, no, whatever I want to say, that idea you don't know. So Mrs. Pearson said, I thought you asked me to let you do it. So Mrs. Pearson said, I was thinking that you will become the boss of my family and then you will try to teach them a lesson. So she said, I will do, but not as me, as you. So she said, I'll become the boss, but not as Mrs. Fitzgerald, but as Mrs. Pearson. So she said, how you're going to do this? So Mrs. Fitzgerald said, we'll change our places, means we'll change our spirits. So she said, how you're going to do that? She said, don't worry about it. I have learnt all the tricks in the eastern country and then I will do it. So she said, Mrs. Pearson said, I don't know whether it is right or wrong. What shall we do? So Mrs. Pearson said, you only give me a chance and then you just hold my hand for a minute, and then taking her hands in her own hands, Mrs. Fitzgerald, she took the hand of Mrs. Pearson in her own hand and she said, she muttered these words, Astratum dum, astratum lam, astratum lamba, lumdum bona. So these magical words she said, and within a second the spirit of both the ladies were exchanged. So now Mrs. Fitzgerald looked like Mrs. Fitzgerald had the spirit of Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Pearson had the spirit of Fitzgerald. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald told her, it's happened, everything is okay. So Mrs. Pearson said, very neat, didn't you know I had it in me? So Mrs. Fitzgerald, she got angry. She said, but whatever shall I do, Mrs. Fitzgerald? George and the children can't see me like this. So Mrs. Fitzgerald, in the spirit of Pearson, she said, I don't want to see my family in problem. So how can that be possible? So Mrs. Pearson means here we are talking about Mrs. Fitzgerald who is in Pearson's body and Fitzgerald who has got Pearson's body. Means both the bodies have been exchanged. This one has become Pearson and this one has become Fitzgerald. So here the spirits have changed. So these people, they are getting, means this lady, at present Fitzgerald, she is getting puzzled how the family members are going to be treated. So Fitzgerald says, means Pearson here, she says, don't worry about it. And then very soon they hear that somebody is coming. So the other one, means Pearson in Mrs. Fitzgerald's body, she moves out, and then Mrs. Fitzgerald in Pearson's body, she's sitting and she is smoking, and she was lighting another cigarette and she started playing the cards and the game of patience on the table. And after a few moments, Doris Pearson, Doris is the daughter of Mrs. Pearson, she enters and she is a pretty girl. She is early 20s, and who would be pleasant enough if she had not been spoiled. And she was a spoiled child. So that's all for today, children. And tomorrow we'll see how the daughter, she behaved, and what all conversation both mother and the daughter had. So I think it's enough for today, because this change in the body, change of the spirit may confuse you. So in the next class again I will tell you the change of the spirits. Mrs. Fitzgerald has got Mrs. Pearson's spirit, and Mrs. Pearson has got the spirit of Fitzgerald. That's all for today. Good day, children.